about not only mitochondrial energy, which is energy in the cell, but also adrenal energy. So, that being said, I want to talk less about why we're tired, because there are lots of, that can be a real bummer, and more about how to get more energy in your life. And one of them is to sleep, and to cultivate sleep, and to love sleep, to enjoy it. So cultivating sleep often requires cultivating the place where you sleep, and also understanding how to get to sleep. And I have to say that I am guilty of laying in bed, doing words with friends. I used to do yeah. But then I just go out, and I usually go out till about, it varies, 1 to 2:30 or something like that. All of us need a chill down period though, and often what happens is we don't allow ourselves to have a chill down. So we shouldn't have to go from 50 miles an hour to 0 all at once. The other thing that happens, and I hope nobody in this room is guilty of this, but I'm always shocked when you hear it, is that there's a lot of electrical stimulation in the room, the bedroom, or wherever it is that you sleep. Hopefully it's the bedroom. TVs. One of my favorites is the LED lights that are on.
Kids for teenagers like that.
Yeah, and the clock that's near your bed. The router in your house. You want to be sure that the router in your house is at least 20 to 30 feet away from your bed. I had a young woman and she was young, she was 14, who was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and I was talking with her mother about things to do. Food, exercise, supplements, sleep. Come to find out the router in their house was underneath her bed. So electromagnetic frequencies are invisible. You don't necessarily feel them, and can be amazingly I was going to say disturbing, but that's not correct English. Amazingly interruptive in your energy cycle. So one of the things that is sometimes hard to wrap our heads around is that we are more than our physical bodies. We are energetic entities. And that's, in Chinese medicine, the Chinese seem to understand that very easily. And that we pull energy in, not just from the food that we eat and the air that we breathe, but also from our environment. Hence, being in the right environment is very important, and cultivating in your home the right environment. So I happened to be in the grocery store line the other day, and Simple, that magazine, Simple, has a whole thing on cultivating a stress-free home environment. So I had to buy it. I really buy it. I had to buy it. Okay. So you know what most of it was about? Decluttering and plants, having plants in your house. Nature cannot be underestimated. Being outside, being in a place where there is lots of foliage, i.e. trees, fresh sea air. We're really lucky because you have to live pretty far away from the beach to not get some fresh sea air. And being barefoot. There's been a lot of research on electromagnetic frequency, and hi there, come on in, Mary. We were waiting for other people to show up before we get people spread out, but we're going to have you sit in that chair, and if you want to pull it back a little bit, if you feel like you need to be 6 feet away from Devin, which I don't blame you, that's good. So there's some really interesting research about the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth, and it is 30 hertz. That's what they've extrapolated out, and I say they because it's a whole collection of people who've been doing research. Being barefoot on the Earth for 30 minutes daily is recommended for anybody who is feeling fatigued. It refuels the body in a way. So we live at the beach, and that's easy. You just go down to the beach and walk in your bare feet, even in really cold weather. That's easy enough to do. And I've done a lot of experimentation with feeling that energy. I do know you can feel it if you have flip-flops on. And I also know that if you have leather shoes on, it doesn't work, or leather soles, so. And for some of you, you know I do Qigong. I haven't done it recently, but I have always been fascinated with the extra physical energy of the body. And I had, for probably a couple decades, I was doing, each year I chose a different meditation to do. And now what I do is just sort of become aware of it every day and do a conglomerate of all of that. But I would challenge you, if you haven't done that, I mean, it is the simplest, number one thing to do to begin to balance your energy out. So when people are low energy, oftentimes it's not so much that they're low energy, but that they have imbalanced energy. The other thing is that they also have lack of purpose, or they're confused about purpose. Now, I feel like everybody here is probably pretty clear about their purpose, but it changes through life, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you lose track of it because the rug's pulled out from underneath you. And I have some wonderful patients who I've known for a long time who, for one reason or another, have lost track of what their purpose is, and then they begin to feel. What I usually get first is anxiety, and then you realize they're just really super tired. But getting in touch with your purpose is easier to do when you're in touch with the energies around you. And Qigong, which predates Tai Chi, is a self-treatment, a self-acupuncture treatment. And I used to have a meetup group where we did Qigong out in the state park. And as ADD and as agitated as one can be, with me, I mean, once you go out into the woods or into a sand bowl I don't know if you guys have ever been to one of those out in the park, but the heat's beating down. It's just a lovely place to be. There's aromas. Things begin to balance out fairly quickly. And what it feels like to be energized is not what many people associate with energy, right? I had a young, well, he's not that young. I mean, he's in his 40s, but he's younger than me, right? Guy come in. His wife forced him to come in. He did come in on his own, which I thought was interesting. She thought I might be able to help him with his immune system, because his immune system was showing up on blood work as going down. I loved this. I mean, sometimes things are just really simple. He revealed to me that he had seen a psychiatrist for anxiety attacks several years prior, and the psychiatrist had recommended that he cut back on caffeine. Oh, well, how much caffeine do you drink? He drank something like 12 Diet Cokes a day and was drinking 2 cups of coffee in the morning. Wow. He's looking for a certain type of energy that is unrealistic. It is a ramped up, super stimulated energy. I actually had a contractor who helped us do this, who was drinking, at the time he was doing this, 12 espressos a day. And both of these guys are men. I mean, a woman doing this would probably hemorrhage or something. But that kind of energy is the kind of energy that gets you through school. It gets you through projects. It gets you through stressful times in life. But that's not the kind of energy you want. And everybody has a unique energy signature as well. We want, and if you didn't know this coming in, I'm telling you, what you want is relaxed, balanced energy. Where at the end of the day, you're not quite exhausted, right? But you do want to be exhausted when you go to bed, and a lot of people don't realize that. You're not supposed to be up all day long. There are circadian rhythms to everything. And in the packet, this is something new that Caitlin printed off for us. There should be, you should see, this why do we wake up or feel ill at certain times of the day. This is the circadian rhythm of the body during the day. This is traditional Chinese medicine. Everybody who studies acupuncture or traditional Chinese medicine has to learn this. I didn't memorize it. I was memorizing other things. But it's interesting because people often tell me that they're waking up sometime between 1 and 3 a.m. in the morning. That's liver time. It's the time you're supposed to be resting really deeply. And if you're waking up between 1 and 3 in the morning, usually there's something to do with your liver. You either need to talk it back to sleep, or you need to get engaged around detoxification, or perhaps looking at what is it that I'm doing during the day that's creating a level of toxicity that's up-regulating my system. The funny thing about all that is most people are really tired around 4, right? And 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., or not most people, I hear a lot of that. By 4, I'm tanked out. I can't do any more work. They might as well just send me home from work because I'm not doing anything. And 4 happens to be bladder time. Bladder time is also, sorry, where was kidney? Kidney is right after that, yeah. So bladder and kidney represent adrenal function. So we usually wake up with high adrenal activity, or that's a normal circadian rhythm that we want to see. Upon awakening, which varies for different people, but upon awakening, say 6 a.m. in the morning, your adrenals should be at their peak, and you should be throwing off as much cortisol as you're going to be able to do through the day. And that's one of the things that we measure, and we can do it through saliva, we can do it in blood work. But measuring your cortisol cascade, and there's a sheet in the pack, it's a picture of a test, a saliva test that comes from one of my patients who is 32, and bless her heart, she's a sweet girl. She has some fertility issues. I guess she's a woman, right? But she has some fertility issues, and she's exhausted, and we can measure that with the cortisol. So people who spend and spend and spend their energies, those guys who are drinking, 12 Diet Cokes a day or 12 espressos, are tapping into their hormonal energy and exhausting it. And if they don't, I had a real talk with the contractor about, keep doing this and you're gonna be in some serious trouble. The patient who came in with it, we'll see. I said, stop or, find somebody else to talk to about this because I can't do anything for you until you stop. Because we've seen other people like this. Not just people who drink coffee, right? That's an addiction, but it's not even an addiction to a chemical. It's actually an addiction to a way of life, which is high stress and push. Yin energy, that's yang energy. The opposite is yin energy, which is nesting, nurturing, and creative energy. So when you have those two in balance, what happens is you begin to feel charged when you're excited about stuff, when the new day comes, right? And then you should legitimately feel very fatigued by the time you're supposed to go to bed. So it's sort of a joke at my house because I come home around 6 or 7 and eat dinner, and as soon as I eat dinner, I'm like, whoa, I gotta lay down. They think it's pathology. It's not. I just know I've worked all day. Now my body's going to digest this food, and I wind up laying down to digest the food. Do you guys have grandparents who used to do that? Culturally, we don't do that in the U.S., but in Europe, it's very common to, and I think they have it a little backwards. I'm not saying that the way the Europeans do it is perfect, but they usually have this long nap in the late afternoon, and then they get up and have a very late dinner. I think it's a little too late, but it's just a little bit of a flip though. If we're eating around 6 or 7 and then to just rest. And I think a lot of times in the US, what we do is we just watch TV, right? You get in the relaxing position and just zone out to TV. You could zone out to other things. You can meditate. One of the rules about meditation that inhibits people from doing it is that they think they cannot eat before, that they need to be sitting upright. You can really meditate in any position, and you can allow yourself to meditate after you've eaten. I just want to free you up to try to meditate at any time, but also to be aware of when you notice that you're tired and to know that you should be tired, but that the other thing is, conversely, when you wake up in the morning, you should have some serious energy. And that's always a sign that things are out of balance, that if you don't have serious energy. So, there's circadian rhythms during the day, and then for those of you who have heard me talk before, I like to talk about the circadian rhythms through the year, which is also a Chinese paradigm, but it's also just the natural world. In the wintertime, we are meant to nourish our sleep, to nourish meditation, to be inside, to not be too active, to just kind of give our bodies a rest. We are not energizer bunnies who can get new batteries and just keep on going. We actually need to recharge. And recharging happens at this time of life, and that's one of the reasons we talk about this, or this time of the year. So, and then what happens after winter, as far as recharging goes? It moves into detox time, and then after detox time, it moves into summer, and summer is all about activity. So a lot of times after the New Year's, people are deciding, I'm going to take on a new exercise plan or something like that. Don't get me wrong, please start exercising, but don't exhaust yourself. This brings me into another conversation. If you are noticing that you wake up and you are still tired, you are not rested, besides developing a better sleep situation, like maybe the space that you're sleeping in, the person you're sleeping with, if they're snoring, you've got to fix the snoring, or you need to find another bedroom. And I realize that that's sometimes very stressful for a relationship, but there's no reason for you to sleep with somebody who's snoring, because you're not getting sleep, and you have to take care of yourself. You can't, they're gonna have to deal with it, right? Deal with it. If you're finding that when you wake up you don't have energy, it's a true sign that you are, one, needing to sleep hygiene, and or that you may be eating too much sugar during the day. They've directly related hypoglycemia to waking through the night. So if you lay down and you go to sleep fairly well, and then sleep for 5 hours, and then you wake up, it can be hypoglycemia. It can also be a genetic problem with producing GABA. I like to fall off the wagon every once in a while, just to prove that my theories are true, or what I've been taught is true. So we have these sugary gummy things for kids to eat, and I tank on those for a week. Just, yeah. As long as I wanted to do. Man, my sleep was totally thrown off. I was having hypoglycemic attacks before I got home for dinner. Now, that's just me. But it's funny how if people are aware of their glycemic index, or how they're eating, how many carbs they're eating, if they start to lower their carb intake, they begin to sleep better. The hypoglycemic, how many of you, do you guys know what it feels like to have a hypoglycemic experience? You feel shaky, you feel like maybe the bottom's gonna fall out, and if you're already sleeping and you have that, what it is more like an anxiety attack. You wake up and your head is just spinning. What do I need to do next? There's a low level or a high level of anxiety that goes along with that. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, it could be that your liver's talking to you. It could be that you're hypoglycemic. And when people are hypoglycemic, we often ask them to eat every 2 hours. But really the big thing is to cut back on carbs so that your insulin isn't spiking too much. When your insulin spikes, your cortisol goes up. And people who have diabetes, an uncontrolled type of diabetes, are usually extremely exhausted. And it's not just that they're not getting the sugar into the cell, it's also that their adrenals have knocked off because it's tired. They're just like, this is crazy. I'm not going to pump out any more adrenal stuff because you're eating too much sugar. Mm-hmm. So think about that. Now, the next thing, and Deb, this is the thing I forgot. We should give everybody an AK test to do. Some of us have difficulty making GABA, which is the happy camper neurotransmitter. GABA is what keeps us asleep, not serotonin, not melatonin. Serotonin and melatonin help you go to sleep, but what helps keep you asleep is GABA. If you have a genetic problem with making GABA, we recommend that you take L-theanine, and that's what that little display is all about, taking L-theanine. But you can test, there's a simple way to test whether you have that genetic problem rather than doing genetic testing, is to take alpha-ketogluteric acid and take it, quite a bit of it, in one morning. And if you have any response to it at all, we know you have a GABA conversion issue. The general response is that people feel energized. I've had a few people say that they felt nauseated, which I don't quite understand. It is quite a few pills, so it might be just too many pills for them. But if you have a problem with converting glutamate to GABA, you do have a low level of anxiety in your life that is needs to be taken care of. And the way that you take care of it is by taking L-theanine, which is an amino acid that converts into GABA and assists that conversion of ketogluteric acid. Because if you don't convert it into GABA, what happens is it becomes glutamate, which is a stimulant. So it helps you to balance things out. I think that the reliance on melatonin that I've noticed in some people is not a bad reliance, but we make melatonin in the morning by sunshine being on our head. I have to say that doesn't happen for me. I don't get up early enough to get out and have sunshine on my head, and I'm usually, I'm inside most of the time. One of the things that's recommended to prevent susceptibility to COVID and even to treat once people have COVID is to take copious amounts of melatonin, which I was kind of shocked at how much was being recommended, anywhere from 5 to 20 milligrams. I honestly would never recommend anybody take more than 3, but since I've read that stuff, I thought, well, okay, we'll try it. I'm experimenting right now. But melatonin is something that if you're deficient in melatonin, you will generally wake up around 12 to 1. And melatonin is known for helping people sleep. But what's not known about melatonin is that it is one of the most powerful antioxidants in the brain. So although I am a little on the fence about whether you should supplement with melatonin all the time, what I like to recommend is that people get up in the morning, and again, I don't do this, so take it with a grain of salt. Wake up in the morning and get some outdoor exercise in, even if it's just for 15 minutes, and have the sunshine, if there is any, shining on the top of your head. It's weird. It's weird that sunshine shining on the top of your head makes melatonin in your pineal. The other thing is you have to be able to see it, so you don't want to be wearing sunglasses either. So no hat, no sunglasses, brisk walk in the morning. And you could probably do one at lunch and still get it. But in the winter time, is probably a better, it's if you're going to supplement with melatonin, wintertime is completely understandable. Why are they recommending melatonin for COVID?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I can't say that I really know how to answer that, except that it is a really potent antioxidant, and one of the sequelae of post-COVID symptoms is confusion, vertigo, a lot of the symptoms of concussion, honestly. So, yeah, I mean, why not? Now, I will tell you this. Kids, you don't want to overdose on melatonin, and I've never felt like adults should overdose on melatonin because you want to keep your body's ability to make it. So even if you were to do a large dose of melatonin over a period of 3 nights, give yourself this is just me talking, I don't have any research on this, give yourself a break for a couple of nights to allow your body to kind of reset, that whole idea of, well, maybe I can make some more. So. Another thing that people associate with sleeplessness is serotonin. And serotonin, is the thing that is also supposedly responsible for happiness. Yeah. And serotonin uptake inhibitors are what most antidepressants are made out of. Um, Serotonin is probably a little less of a player than GABA, actually. And if they could find some GABA uptake inhibitors, I think everybody would be a lot happier. They actually were selling it for a while, and we were able to sell it for a while. It was sorry, I don't even remember the name of it. I was so angry. It was something that was made in Russia, and I guess flew into the U.S. under the FDA's radar. And then once the FDA saw it, they squelched it right away. But it was a GABA enhancer that a lot of people use for helping sleep. So let's just talk about GABA a little bit from an energetic standpoint. GABA is the happy camper neurotransmitter, and I love calling it that simply because if you're not happy, you're not going to make GABA. And if we are more than our physical body, we do. Let me rephrase this. Sorry. What we know, and this is scientifically proven, and the place to read more about this, if you want to, are a couple of books that have been written by a psychiatrist who's out of Toronto, and I think we have one of the front page of his website in the folder. A guy named, and I always forget his. Shoot. Anyway, do I have it? It's not mine. Anyway, Rick Hansen. Rick Hansen is a PhD, he's a psychologist, and he has an institute in California. That is essentially Western psychology enveloping and using and modeling Buddhist meditation and the understanding that we make our bodies, the way we think makes our tissue. That's kind of hard to wrap our heads around sometimes. And I remember, we make our tissue. They did some really cool studies showing that you can change literally the structure of your brain by changing your thinking. Now, that's not the purpose of this, but the point is that what you think literally changes the structure of your brain and can change neurotransmitters. And it's amazing to me how different people respond to different treatments and different changes in their life depending on how they think. You know, we have some real positive thinkers who just, it's like you give them a few little things to do and they run with it, right? And then I have, unfortunately, a lot of patients who aren't doing that work in their life, that personal work of waking up and treating themselves well. You know, and I think of it as treating yourself well. Like, and maybe that's because they had self-talk when they had people talking with them when they were little that wasn't positive. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but as an adult, we can always choose to speak well to ourselves and positive and encouraging. And if you have the opportunity to listen to what your dialogue is, and this is sort of a life work, right? Because, and I can testify because I'm old enough to testify about that, right? Whenever I realize that I am anxious or fearful or super tired, there's always some negative dialogue going on. And it usually has to do with money. Or that I'm not good enough. Or that somehow it didn't work in the past, so it's not going to work now. And whenever I see that, and this is meditation, to do this, whenever I see this in myself, I always choose some positive thing, I don't care what it is, to start repeating. Now, I realize that everybody has their own interior dialogue, that is their own unique interior dialogue. But one of the things, and I'd really like for you to leave here today, writing something down that you can take with you, and or if it's not a sentence, an image. Because some of us learn and nurture ourselves in different ways. Like there are tactile people who can aesthetically feel change better. For some people, it's mental dialogue that helps them to change their energy better. For some people, it's color or visual, you know. I use all of them, I figure I need it. But, so one of the things, if you've been meditating through your life, or if you have a rich prayer life, you may have an image that says it all to you. There may be a place that's particularly comforting to you, or energizing. Comforting probably isn't the right word. Energizing, soothing, balancing for you. I'm lucky because I have all of that, and I will talk to myself, and it works. Now, this is how well it works. I have a patient, I haven't seen her in a while, but she used to show up late every single 15 minutes. And she was a lovely human being. I loved her. She was great. And she always brought me a present. You know, it's like, but she was always 15 minutes late. Yeah.
Be mad at her.
And I finally said to her, and she was very chaotic, kind of one of those very, you know, non-structured people, but lovely to be with. And I finally said to her, you know, this is what I do, because I'm a very, you know, we got to start at 3, and if we end this at 4:10, I'm usually frustrated. But oh, there's my clock out there. That what I do, even if I'm in traffic and I know I'm going to be 10 minutes late, I always say I have more than enough time to do whatever I need to do. And I say that over and over and over again, because that pressure of anxiety is not going to help anybody, right? And usually it's weird. Something happens and I either get there on time or they're already late or whatever. So I asked her to start doing that. I said, I realize that you're not just late for me, you're late for everybody, and that creates stress. And so just try that. Do you know the next appointment, I was seeing her monthly at that point, she showed up on time. She didn't have a present. She showed up on time. And she said she just started using it and it was odd that red lights would turn green and blah, blah, blah. But if nothing else, try that, because it then convinces you that you can do other things. And that the world is, we're not disconnected from it. We're not alone in it. And that when we start to energetically affirm that it is what we want it to be, it starts to kind of fall into place. Now that could be considered sort of a New Ager positive thinking thing, and maybe it is, I don't know. But I do know that it works. And if it's not working, you're not saying the right thing. You have to find the right thing to say. And for some people that really is meditation, to find the right thing to say. What is my mental dialogue that is draining the life out of me? Not all of it is that doing that, but what is it that is doing that? And then switch it. Or know what to say to yourself when it's happening. Which brings me to another thing. What is draining the life out of you? Sometimes not knowing what your purpose is, but oftentimes work is doing it for people. I'm lucky because I love my work. It's not draining me. Does your work drain you? Better not. But for people who are feeling like their work is draining the life out of them, I think it's really time to really look at how can that be changed? You know, is it retirement that needs to happen? Is it a shift, or can you bring new life to your work position? For people who are in the wrong, I know I'm telling a lot of stories about patients, and I don't think you'll ever meet them. You'll never know who they are. Right? But I had this middle-aged woman who came to see me just recently, who had this long story of chronic infections, and after feeling her pulses and looking at her, she was obviously really exhausted. And you will become exhausted if your immune system is always upregulated. But in talking with her, she is a musician and had switched her career about 5 years ago. And what she's doing, although it's a lovely profession to have, is draining the life out of her. She's just too sensitive. And so I said to her at our first visit, maybe you could find some way to do what you're doing, but maybe it won't be, not so stressful, like switch hospitals or something like that. I don't know. I was shocked to see her this week, and she did. I was like, oh, okay, good, great. But you know what? She looked like a totally different person. So that can happen in your workplace, it can happen in your relationships, and it can happen in your family, it can happen with friends, it can happen with the restaurant you go to, regularly with somebody. And so the other thing I'd like for you to do, besides finding what is that image or sentence that you need to use as a mantra to help give you energy, is where are the places in my life that my energy is being drained? And it can be as simple as my closet sucks and I need to organize it. And if you haven't seen Marie Cadeau on Netflix, you need to watch her because she's so cute. Or it could be that you have a relationship with a friend that just is not working. There's always negativity. It's never about something uplifting. And for some of us, we can feel that. For other people, it might take a little while to realize. But you know what the feeling is when your energy is being sucked out. And I'm here to give you permission. If somebody is sucking the life out of you, it's not a good relationship, and there's no reason for you to stay in it. There is absolutely no reason for you to stay in it. Or at least, if you have to stay in it, then you really need to set boundaries and create times where it's okay to be with that person, but you need to limit it so that your energy isn't being sucked right. Now, of course, there are certain relationships where you can't do that, like with kids. But if that's happening with kids and they're young, right, there has to be a strategy for you to get your energy back. So, what are those relationships that are sucking the life out of you? And everybody immediately started writing, so evidently you guys already know. Most of the time, energy is something that has to be cultivated.